What is the story if you want to buy land as a foreigner in Asia? Many countries allow you to buy a condo as a foreigner, but buying land is a lot more restricted. There are a few countries in Asia that allow foreigners to buy land, and we'll let you know which countries they are. But first of all, let's have a think about why you would want to do this. Perhaps you're just wanting to diversify your investments. Maybe you want to move some money out of the country where you live. Maybe you want access to a tangible asset such as land that might have timber on it, that might have access to water on it, where you can grow vegetables, where you can keep animals that could provide you with an income as well as provide food for you and your family. Whether you're looking for a lifestyle purchase or a bit of a plan B, land can serve many purposes. It can essentially be a blank canvas that you can do more or less what you want to do with it, provided you are within the regulations and the rules under the state and the council where you own the land. While it can be difficult to own land in your name as a foreigner in many countries, there are often workarounds with foreign companies, nominee arrangements and things like that. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but here we're talking about which countries you can own land freehold and outright in your name personally. So first up, there is Japan. Japan does allow foreigners to own land. In most cases, you will operate under the same rules as a local. Some types of land do have restrictions on foreign ownership, and these include things like agricultural land, forested land, and land that is near military or strategic locations, which you would expect to have a restriction on foreign ownership. There is no residence permit required. You can come into Japan on a tourist visa and buy land more or less like a local. One thing that a lot of people are interested in is the IKEA houses. Now these are more or less abandoned homes in Japan. There is thought to be more than 8.5 million IKEA houses in Japan. And this is a result of mass urbanization, people moving out of the countryside into the cities. There is also a bit of a cultural element to it where houses are often seen as depreciating assets in Japan, whereas people are not so inclined to renovate and fix up old houses like they do in Australia, in the US, and a lot of other countries. So a lot of these older houses are seen as not really worth putting the money into, and a lot of Japanese would rather just knock it down and start again. But these IKEA houses have become very popular, and there is a bit of a buzz online around it, particularly with Westerners who are interested in how cheap it is to pick up these houses in comparison to their home countries. In a lot of cases, significant improvements will be required on these houses, so you will have to put money into it most of the time, but still it can be seen as an alternative to someone who wants a home in another country, who perhaps has worked and lived in Japan before and they want to set up a base there. And people see this as a much cheaper alternative compared to places like Australia, US, and the UK. Next up is South Korea. Foreigners can own land in South Korea. In most cases, you will operate under similar rules as locals. Again, there are restrictions in place, such as buying agricultural land and buying land in border regions. Residence is not required here either. An interesting thing about South Korea is that they tend to operate under a reciprocity principle, which basically means if your country, if you're American, if America doesn't allow South Koreans to buy property in America, then South Korea won't allow Americans to buy property in South Korea, and vice versa. If South Koreans are allowed to buy property in America, Americans are generally allowed to buy property in South Korea. Next up, Taiwan also allows foreigners to buy land there. They operate very similarly to South Korea. They operate under the reciprocity principle, and there are restrictions like many other countries, such as foreigners can be barred from buying land in Taiwan if it is forestry land, if it is fishery land, if the land is used for hunting, or if the land is nearby to a military base. So there you can see East Asia is very open to foreigners, but also this part of Asia tends to be more expensive than Southeast Asia. A lot of people are interested in Southeast Asia. Can you buy land in Southeast Asia? Generally, it is very difficult. One place that you can buy land in Southeast Asia is Malaysia. So foreigners and non-residents are allowed to buy land in Malaysia. You will be subject to the rules and the thresholds of the various state that you are buying land in. And the thresholds we're talking about here is that there is generally a minimum purchase amount if you want to buy land as a foreigner in Malaysia. For most states, it is about the 1 million ringgit mark, but there are differences state to state and depending on type of property. So for example, in the Federal Territory of Kuala Lumpur, there is a flat minimum purchase threshold of 1 million regardless on the property type. If you're buying land, if you're buying a condo, you have to spend at least 1 million ringgit. In Johor Bahru, in the east of the country, which is very close to Singapore, you have to spend at least 1 million if you're buying a condo, and at least 2 million ringgit if you're going to buy landed property in an international zone, such as the Johor Singapore Special Economic Zone. Another part of Malaysia that is very popular with foreigners is, of course, Penang. Now, Penang has different rules for the mainland and the island. I'll tell you a little bit about Penang Island here. If you want to buy a condo there, you have to spend at least 1 million ringgit. If you want to buy landed property on Penang Island, you have to spend at least 3 million ringgit. And the good thing about buying property in Malaysia is that you can use your property purchase as a way to get your foot in the door on one of their residence programs, such as the MM2H Peninsula program or even the Sabah MM2H program out on Malaysian Borneo. If you want to learn more about these programs, these residency programs, head over to offshoreinasia.com, go to our Malaysian articles section. You'll be able to read all about the various residency programs in Malaysia, as well as what you need to know when embarking on purchasing property in Malaysia. So there's 4 countries where you can buy land in your name, in your personal name, with no restrictions or very little restrictions as a foreigner in Asia. What about if you're interested in somewhere like Thailand or the Philippines? A lot of our viewers are living in these countries. Can you buy land in these places? Well, technically you cannot, but it does happen and it can be done. How this is normally done is if you are married to a local, you would put the property title in your spouse's name. Another way to do it is to set up a foreign company. Using Thailand as an example, this will usually require you to set up a Thai company that has 51% ownership with a Thai national. That could be your wife, that could be your lawyer, it could be some business partners. And then 49% can be held by a foreigner, that would be you. This company can then be used to buy landed property in Thailand, and you can work with similar arrangements in the Philippines. I would say to be careful when using this structure. It is sort of a bit of a grey area. Nominee arrangements are very much frowned upon. It does happen a lot, but there have also been crackdowns and talk of crackdowns on these kinds of arrangements. If you're going to do something like this, you want to certainly make sure it is a legitimate business partnership, that you're not using a nominee arrangement. If you are using a nominee arrangement, it might work for a couple of years, it might work for many years, but it might not as well. You are really leaving yourself exposed, especially if there is a crackdown, which it does certainly get talked about, and it does happen from time to time. If the Thai authorities look at your situation and say that this is not a legal company, you could lose your land, you could lose your investment. So while you do hear about this happening a lot, I would just urge people who are thinking of doing it to just be very careful. And if you are going to use a local company in Thailand or the Philippines to buy property, to do it the right way. It has to be a genuine business partnership. Now, if you're interested in any of this stuff, if you want to learn more, you can head over to our website, offshoreinasia.com. You can do some consulting with us. If you're looking for people on the ground to help you get this stuff done, if you're looking for real estate agents, lawyers, buyers agents, if you want help with any of this stuff, get in touch with us and we can help you to get this done. We'll leave the video there, guys. Thank you for watching and catch you later.